Hey, let's talk about some more books. Now, what are we talking about today? Today, we're going to be talking about The Scarecrow's Queen by Naomi Lucas and Mel Braxton. And we're going to be doing some makeup. That's the plan for today. Gonna do my makeup, gonna yap about a book, and gonna have a good time. Now today, I kind of want to do a more casual look. That's kind of the plan. So step one is putting my hair up. Let's just get it out of the way. But The Scarecrow's Queen. So this book piqued my interest so much because the love interest is a scarecrow. And I haven't really come across that concept. I haven't seen it really anywhere else. There's a serious lack of scarecrow love interest. We need to do something about that, like collectively. Everybody get to writing. But yeah, so the male love interest is a scarecrow, so it's a bit of a monster romance, which I love. And the scarecrow is named Hollowstock, which, pause, that is the most scarecrow name ever. Like that is perfect. Hollowstock? Now that's a scarecrow's name. Perfect. And our FMC is named Delilah. Basically, like the premise of the story is that her aunt passed away and left her farm and her house and everything to Delilah. And she's basically a city girl. So she comes to the countryside to see this property. She plans on fixing it up and then selling it. But of course, there's gonna be some complications in there, like potentially a scarecrow that comes to life. Crazy. So let's just start going through this. The book starts off in Hollowstock's POV, so it's a bit of a dual POV, but it's definitely more in Delilah's POV than it is in Hollowstock's, but occasionally Hollowstock has some things to say. So in the prologue, he's just there, he's just a scarecrow, he can't move, but Sylvie, Delilah's aunt, has passed away, so he knows that something's gonna happen with the farm because now she's gone. And oh my god, what happens to the farm? Well, we start off right away. Delilah shows up. The property that all this is on is called Crow's Rest, which I feel like that's a really good name for a farm too. I don't know, Crow's Rest? Kind of love that. Anyway, color corrector. And she's basically just overseeing the property, being like, yep, I'm gonna have to fix this, this, and this, but once I do that, I can sell it, so it'll be all good. And in the midst of all of this, she sees Hollowstock out in the cornfield because he's all intimidating the scarecrow out in the middle of the cornfield. She's off-put by him. She's like, ooh, I'm getting weird vibes. You know what? I need to get rid of him. So now that she knows what's up with the property, she takes time off work so she can spend a significant amount of time there so she can fix it up and then sell it. So she's basically on extended leave from her job. And it's time to get to business. And so she's very busy with the house. She's got a lot going on. And then she remembers, oh yeah, I wanted to get rid of that scarecrow because he's freaky. So she does. She hauls his ass off that pole and throws him right in the dumpster and is like, bye. Well, clearly there's something up with the land that she's on because if the scarecrow's the love interest, like there's gotta be some weird things going on. And well, her throwing him out triggers him to basically come alive because he's not supposed to be abandoned and leave the property. He's supposed to care for the property. So he comes alive and he basically just climbs out of the dumpster and is like, you ain't getting rid of me. And so on his way back, he intentionally scares her just for like and giggles because he's kind of pissed off that she dumped him. But he just goes right back to his pole and ties himself on the pole again to freak her out even more because then the next day, you know, she's gonna doubt herself because like, didn't I just throw you away? Oh my god, you're right there. Like the whole classic like horror thing. So since I'm doing more of a casual, natural look, I'm actually going to be using this, which is NYX's Buttermelt Glaze Soft Glow Skin Tint with SPF in it. So let's do that. I never know if you're supposed to shake these, so I'm shaking it anyway, and it's fine, because I said so. Anyway, so the next day, that's exactly what happened. She sees him back up on that pole, and she's like, what the hell? And she honestly thinks that somebody is pranking her. So she takes him back down, she throws him in her truck, and she takes him right into town. She's like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm getting rid of him. She originally wants to drop it off at a local museum where this Hopkins guy runs it and he's introduced himself because he knew her aunt and stuff. But when she goes to this whole museum, he's not there and he's gone on like extended leave because of course he is. That's why. The original plan was to just dump him in this museum. So then he's their problem. But since the museum is closed and she can't do anything about it, she's like, okay. and she dumps him again in like the dumpster behind the museum. So now he's been trashed again, but very far away from the homestead now. She also meets a couple characters that are from the first book, because technically this is a duet. I have not read the first book in this duet. This is technically the second book. But it's one of those where it takes place in the same like town or same world, but the characters have their own plot lines going on. So technically we see these characters from the first book, but that doesn't really mean much to me because I haven't read the first book. It's fine. Anyway, so when she gets home, there are crows literally everywhere. Because the farm is named Crow's Rest for a reason, right? Like there's a lot of crows everywhere. It's Crow's Rest. Makes sense. So she's creeped out by the crows, but she's like, what am I supposed to do about them? Like, it's literally called Crow's Rest. They like it here, whatever. She also happens to find a journal that used to be Winifred. Now, who's Winifred? That is the original owner of Crow's Rest, basically like 200 years ago. And in this journal, it documents like all of the former queens, because the people who own the farmstead are called queens in this. And it documents all of them. Even past what Winifred's life would have been, like it goes all the way up to her aunt, long after Winifred has passed. And in this book, in Winifred's hand, it's everybody. So she's off put by this and doesn't really know what to think other than, I don't know, good record keeping. Like, sure, I definitely need more product. So now we're back to Hollistock's POV because he's been dumped again. So again, he basically awakens because Winifred's magic, because hint hint, Winifred was a witch, and she made him, and her magic has outlived her and is still alive in Hollistock, and so the magic awakens him and makes him sentient and, you know, alive, all that fun stuff. And so he climbs out of the dumpster again and makes his way back to Crow's Rest. On the way, he runs into a drunk sleeping guy and he steals his clothes. And the clothes had a man's name on them because it was like a uniform. The name was Jack. So now he's gonna go by Jack. And so he intends to start caring for the farm since it seems that Delilah is not going to do that, which she had no intention to. She planned on selling everything, and she also knows nothing about farming. So yeah, she wasn't gonna do that. So Hollistock is like, this is unbelievable. I'll do it myself then. Like, okay, pop off, king. So then Jack just suddenly shows up on her doorstep and is like, I'm looking for work. I was a farmhand here and I used to help Sylvie. Can I like keep working here? And so basically they come to an agreement that whatever he grows, he can keep half of the crops to profit off of, all that fun stuff. And during this exchange is where he learns that Delilah wants to sell it. And so he's like, that's why she's not doing what she's supposed to. She wants to sell it. Okay. Which he's not pleased about that, but you know, he's a scarecrow. What is he gonna do? He also doesn't communicate super well because again, he's a scarecrow who just came to life. So he's very blunt and very direct and doesn't like understand a lot of social cues. So it's a little awkward. And like his full name that he tells her is Jack Hollow. It reminds me of a movie where somebody's like, what's your name? And they're like, oh, I have to come up with a fake name. And so they do that whole like panning the camera because they're looking around the room and then they just like the first thing they see becomes their name. Like that's kind of what it felt like when he said his name was Jack Hollow. But like, sure. Yeah, Jack Hollow. That's a cool name. So now that they worked out a deal. Oh, why did I just wipe on my face? What the f? You didn't see that. Now they've worked out a deal, he is starting to take care of the crops. And since he has some magic in him, the crops like listen to him. Like that property is, he can like breathe life into it. He also is watching Delilah a lot throughout all of this because he does want to learn how to be human. Because even though he's like alive now, he's still very much a scarecrow. And so he's trying to hide the fact that he is a scarecrow. He's trying to keep that on the DL. So he's trying to just like watch Delilah and see what she does and be like, okay, so that's how a human's supposed to act. Got it. So then they kind of fall into a routine. She's working on the house, he's working on the crops, but then all of a sudden, one day, Delilah is like calling out to him, Jack, Jack. And so eventually he comes and it turns out she was going into one of the buildings on the property and she was climbing up some stairs and she kind of fell through the stairs because one of the stairs broke and she like fell through it because it's all really old and rotting. And so he helps her down, he saves her, all of that, and he starts to get this weird, funny feeling in his chest. We know what that means. And also, this is kind of important. So, Winifred is a witch, and she was the first owner of Crow's Rest. Well, there's this guy called the Crow King. By guy, he's like this god of corvids, and he's just like a big crow. She made a deal with him. It's like, I'll provide food for your crows so they don't go hungry in the winter if in turn you bless these lands. And so that's kind of the agreement. So whoever is the owner of the farm is now the new pact holder and needs to keep up with the pact. Provide for the crows in winter, give them your crops, and you get good crops in return. However, Delilah doesn't know about this, And since Jack does not communicate very well because he's a scarecrow, she like doesn't believe what he's saying and he's not explaining it very well. She's just like not understanding this contract. But as time goes on, they're still doing their own thing. Jack is working on the crops. She's working on the house, getting it ready to sell. Now during all of this, she's been watching Jack more and more. And she's like, I like what I see. Which like, me too. She's starting to get attracted to him, and she's also getting weird vibes from the crows because now that she kind of like knows a little bit about the pact, the amount of crows is just creeping her out. Like she's just like knowing that something's up, but she's just not fully clicking with everything. Concealer time. And also, Delilah has no idea that Jack is actually Hollowstock. So eventually the museum calls her back and is like, hey, I was gone for a long time. What's up? She's like, oh, I was going to give you Hollowstock, that Scarecrow, but you weren't there. And he's like, oh, if you don't want him, like, I'll take him. She's like, too late, I already dumped him. And they're like, oh, I really wish you hadn't done that. He was special. So it's like, bruh, they knew something was up with him. But she has no idea that something's up with him, and she fully thinks that she dumped him and he's gone for good. But there's a local festival coming up. It's like a midsummer festival type of thing. And so she musters up the courage because she wants to go with Jack. So she invites him to go to this festival together, and like clearly, if she was asking a regular human, they would know that she was asking them out on a date. Jack is a scarecrow. He does not realize that and turns her down. And so Delilah's like, damn, okay. So she goes to the festival by herself. And she has a fun time because, like, you know, local festivals, that's fun, good food. And she meets Miranda, who is another local and who knew her aunt. And she's very nice and she's happy she met her. But during all of this, she's still kind of like looking out because Jack didn't say he didn't want to go to the festival. He just turned down her offer. So she's like, did he go? Did he go? Is he here? Did he really go without me? And so she's looking around for him, but she doesn't find him. Well, it turns out that Jack, or Hollowstock, did in fact go to the festival. After he learned of it from Delilah telling her, he's like, oh, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna see if I can find an appropriate queen since Delilah is not taking care of this place and we need a pact holder that's actually gonna do her job. So I'm gonna find a new queen. And he also meets Miranda and is like, perfect. I'm gonna sell it to her and she'll be the next queen and everything will work out nice. And as he's wandering around, he does spot Delilah. Delilah doesn't see him, but he sees her. And he also sees another guy that kind of waves to her and smiles at her. And Jack does not like that. He doesn't know like all the human emotions because again, he's a scarecrow. But he's feeling some jealousy. He did not like that. He doesn't like anybody else looking at Delilah. He's not putting it two and two together what that means because of course not. I put that skin tint on my neck, didn't I? I think I did. If I didn't, don't say anything about it. Okay. But as he is looking at everybody else look at her, he like comes to the realization of like, oh, Delilah must not have a partner because nobody's come around the farm. She's not with anybody. She must not have a partner, which is good that he at least realized that. But eventually he does realize that he's been away from the property too long and he starts to turn back into a regular scarecrow because his whole creation, his whole thing is protecting that farm. He can't really stray from that farm too long. So he books it back. Once he gets back onto the property, his strength returns to him and things are okay. But he hears Delilah kind of screaming and freaking out. And so he runs to her rescue again. And it turns out the crows are like straight up attacking her. They're like clawing at her and pecking at her, the whole thing. So he scares them off because again, he's quite good at that. He's a scarecrow. But it turns out that part of the pact, usually during midsummer, they at least get some of the crops. And since Delilah is still like not understanding this pact, she didn't give them anything. And the crows were not happy about that. But Jack saves her and carries her into her house and tucks her in. So the next morning when Delilah wakes up, she realizes that Jack was there with her all night. She also finds him reading a human anatomy book, and he originally read it because he wanted to learn like how to heal her little cuts from all the crows. Because when he gets hurt, he just sews himself back up. And so he's like, oh, I'm gonna read this human anatomy book and like figure that out. Like I bet I can just sew her up too. Her injuries were not that severe, she didn't need stitches. And also the wrong book. However, in this book, he does learn that the human body, it's much more complex than he had any notion of. Also, in this chapter, chapter 15, he admits to Delilah that she is quite distracting to him. Now, of course, to Delilah, she thinks that's like a confession. She's like, oh my God, so he's weird, but he does like me. And so she thinks that he's going to lean in for a kiss and kiss her, but he doesn't. He totally swerves her. And she's like, what the But of course, Jack being oblivious, he has no idea that he did this and is just like unaware. So basically, Hollowstock or Jack, whatever, is slowly falling for Delilah, but he has like no idea. And after coming across that human anatomy book, he's now like acutely aware he doesn't have a, because he's a scarecrow, so like why would he have that? But now he's like, why don't I have that? I have the male form, but I don't have that. And so he's pondering over this. Meanwhile, Miranda is a potential buyer of this house, and so Delilah is giving her a tour of like all the things that she's done so far, what she intends to do, because it's not quite ready to sell yet, but she's giving her a tour. So she is like totally oblivious to everything. But Jack sees this and he's like, wait a minute, I liked Miranda at first, but I don't like the idea of her being the new queen over Delilah. I don't think I like that. But again, he doesn't know why. So more time passes and more progress is made, but Delilah still doesn't really know all that much about Jack. She really doesn't know much of anything about him. She doesn't know where he goes. She has no idea where he lives. She doesn't even know if he has a cell phone. Like, she doesn't know. However, she still likes him. So after a hard day of work, she decides she's gonna follow him because she wants to know, like, where does he run off to after he's done? So she does. She kind of like creeps after him, because after he's done for the day, he literally just walks into the forest. And so she follows him. And there she just sees him like washing his clothes in a creek there. He took off his shirt, he's rinsing it in the creek. And of course she's confused about this, but before she can like do anything about it, Jack already is like, hey, I know you're following me. Because again, he's very aware of what happens on that property, so he knew immediately that she was following him. He knew right away. And so she's embarrassed because she didn't want to be caught. She was just trying to be nosy. What's up, buddy? You want to join the video? Yeah, so he confronted her, is like, yeah, I knew you were following me. She's super embarrassed. But one thing leads to another, and they kiss. They kiss! They finally kiss! It only took 18 chapters, but they finally kissed. And obviously this is his first kiss, but he likes the sensation. And while they're kissing and basically making out, she's rubbing her hands all over his back and she feels like this weird like thread or something, and so she starts pulling at it. Well, that was like thread that was keeping him together, and so she almost like pulled too much, like actually cause an injury or be an issue, and so he kind of like freaks out and then just leaves because he's like, she can't know that I'm a scarecrow. And she's just left really confused because that like basically ruins the moment. And so she thought she had answers that Jack does in fact like her, but now she's like, wait, maybe he doesn't? I don't like, what's going on? She's very confused. So now, after that super awkward makeout session, they're avoiding each other because of course they are. Why communicate when you can just avoid the problem? And now she's also starting to have doubts about getting rid of the scarecrow because the crows are a lot. She's like, man, maybe he was doing his job and I should not have done that. So she starts just making a new one. She's like, I'm crafty, I'll just make my own. And Jack sees her doing this and is like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm making a scarecrow. And so obviously she doesn't know that she's already talking to a scarecrow, but Jack is like, let me help you. And so they finish making this creepy scarecrow, but this one, Jack adds a to it because he wasn't made properly, so he wants this one to be made properly in his terms. He wasn't made properly. And so of course Delilah is like, why did you do that? And he's like, what? And again, it's just one of those communication things where Delilah is like, huh, you're kind of weird, but also you're really attractive. I don't know how to feel about this. And so that night, after this whole interaction, she actually to the thought of him. So now we're back in Hollowstock's POV. And again, he's really thinking about the fact that he does not have a... He's like, this is... He's like, you know what? You know what I'm gonna do? He goes to the scarecrow that they made together. He takes the off of that scarecrow and he sews it onto himself. Because he's like, boom, I'll just make myself one. And of course, since he's alive, like the magic in him helps to attach it as he's sewing it so it's an actual appendage. And then he uses it himself a lot. You know what I mean by that. From Delilah's house, he decides he steals a cowboy romance book, because those were books that her aunt had in the house and she was reading and enjoying, and he's like, I'm gonna take one too. This will help me learn about humans more. And so he takes that and he goes and reads it. But while he's doing that, we're back with Delilah. And her brother calls her and is like, hey, I'm coming to visit you. And she doesn't believe him. She's just like, stop joking around. No, you're not. And he's like, I am though. And she's like, no, you're not. Stop being weird. So after that phone call, she's actually quite worried about Jack because now he's been missing a couple days. He hasn't shown up. She doesn't have his phone number. She has no way of contacting him. She's very, very worried. And she decides, she's like, maybe I should file a missing persons report. But as she's pulling out the driveway, Jack appears. And so she stops and is ready to tear him a new one when he abruptly is like, here, and hands her flowers. He's like, these are for you. And they're a bunch of wildflowers. And she's like, okay, thanks, but like you were gone. And I thought like you were injured somewhere or dead. Like, what are you doing? You can't do that to me. But she takes the flowers and she likes them and he kisses her again. And then she becomes acutely aware that he is very hard against her during this. And she's like, I never noticed him to have this massive of a to begin with. Like, how did I not notice this? Where did this come from? Well, we know where it came from, but she don't know that. And he basically declares that they're partners now. And Jack is very confident because he basically read that cowboy romance book like a tutorial or user guide on how to be with Delilah. And so he's like, I'm gonna make you dinner tonight and then you're gonna take my like, he's super blunt about it because I'm sure that was in that romance book. And he's like, I can emulate that. And so that's the plan. So the whole day, Delilah is like trying to busy herself with like housework and stuff, but she's just thinking about him the whole time. The entire day as Jack's doing stuff, he is hard. But when evening arrives, Jack makes an entire spread. There's candles on the table. There's so many fruits and vegetables that were grown on the property that he grew for her. And so they enjoy that for a little bit. Jack doesn't eat though, because again, he's a scarecrow. He doesn't need that. But he tries a strawberry and absolutely loves it. But after that, he's like, listen, I want to put my inside of you. And she's like, whoa, because like the bluntness is crazy. And so, hey, the next chapter is leading into that. However, we're 23 chapters deep, right? And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, it's finally happening. And then knock, knock, knock. There's somebody knocking on the damn door. Hard enough that she's like, wait, let's stop. Who the hell is at the door? It's her brother that told her that she was coming, and for some reason she just didn't believe him. Well, he's there, and she's like, dude, why are you here? I told you not to come. And also, like, you know, she doesn't add the part, about to get down, and you blocked me. And this whole interaction eventually turns into a fight where Jack straight up punches him and like takes him down. And Delilah's like, yeah, can you please leave, to her brother. And so he does in a huff. But now like the night is ruined and they don't go back to what they were doing because like she's shook from this whole thing. So I'm like, damn it. Not even 23 chapters in, we're getting there. Ugh. But they do sleep together, like actually sleep together in the same bed because she shook up and she wants him there, but they don't do anything else. But the next day she wakes up before him, so she gets out of bed and she goes outside and she discovers the scythe that he carries around, but she knows it's hollow stalks because it says hollow stalk right on it. And she's like, whoa, pause. She goes to the Scarecrow platform and finds all of his belongings basically underneath that platform. His clothes, the cowboy romance book, all of that stuff is just underneath the platform, and she like finds it all. And she's very shook. She's like, what the hell does this mean? So she confronts him and he admits that, hey, actually I am Hollowstock. Surprise! So they basically talk through all of that, and now they can also talk about the pact with the Crow King some more, because now she actually like understands the magnitude that, hey, there is weird things afoot here, so this is actually real. But she needs time to think about all this because this is a lot to take in, and you know what, I can't blame her. See, this is like too much. I always do this. I always put too much on. And I don't lie, I wanted just like a little subtle pink, and then I put like, this is I was just over here blending because I just can't shut the fuck up. I'm too much of a yapper. Now everybody shush while I fix this. Eventually she confronts him just to be like, hey, I want to plant something myself. Kind of like to bridge the gap between them. She comes up with that topic. Be like, hey, help me plant something. So he's like, okay. And he shows her that he can like basically immediately start growing plants because again, he's connected with the magic of the land. But there's also the problem that like he knows the original plan was for her to fix it up and sell it. But now he wants her to stay and be his queen for good. But she's very conflicted about this because, you know, she'd basically be abandoning her whole life. But that night they don't sleep together, as in actual sleeping. But she looks out the window and she's still thinking about everything, and she sees that he basically tied himself back to the Scarecrow platform. He just decided, you know what, I'm going back to my roots. I'm tying myself back up on this pole and it's fine. So she goes out there to investigate because she's like, why did he do all that? But it was kind of a trap because he figured that she would do that. And then they have some fun together out there. And I'm not kidding, like the next 4 chapters are just more scenarios of sex, sex, and more sex. I think because it took this long to get to that point, they were like, here's all of those scenes right here, back to back. Like there's one where they take a bath together and now they're in the bed and they did it near the Scarecrow platform and now they're over here, and it's just like lots of that, like back to back to back. And during all of this, Hollowstock starts to feel a thumping pressure in his chest because again, he's a Scarecrow so he doesn't have a heart. Well, Delilah's doing something to change that, let's say. But she is avoiding having the like, hey, I'm leaving conversation with him. Yeah, she's just been avoiding that. They've just been having sex and avoiding that conversation because she doesn't want to talk about it. So she's avoiding having like the talk with him about leaving. And Miranda decides to stop by again. And it's like, oh, the property's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And that's where Miranda reveals that she also knows Jack. And Delilah didn't know that. So she's like, what? And Miranda tells her, yeah, he wants me to buy the property. And she feels hurt by this because she feels like he wants to replace her. And so ultimately this kind of ends up in an argument where he's like, well, I did want that, but now I don't. And I want you to stay. And she's like, you can't ask me to stay. Like, blah, 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 you know. Argument time. And so now they're back to not talking to each other. Because again, why communicate when you can simply avoid each other? The farm's big enough for the 2 of them, it's fine. I don't know, that's just what they do. So while they're not talking to each other, she actually starts befriending the crows because she's like, F it, if they're here for this whole pack thing, might as well be friends. But enough time passes that eventually Hollowstock is like, I cannot be away from her anymore. I miss her, I need her, I want her. I'm gonna do something about this. I need to stop messing with my eyes. Okay, now I'm gonna put on mascara. I'm done with the eyeshadow. It is what it is at this point. Anyway, so during all this not talking phase, mascara time, he actually makes a new Scarecrow platform / pole, but like the size of it was made for Delilah. And so when he confronts her and shows her what he made, they have some more sex on that pole. So, you know, like a bit of bondage type of thing. And in doing all this, he tries to convince her to stay. But Delilah is still very conflicted. She's like, man, I do want to stay, but what about my family? What about my life back home? Oh my God, what do I do? So she sets up a meeting to talk things out with Miranda. And so she goes into town and meets at this like coffee shop to talk with Miranda. And Miranda's like, immediately she clocks her. You're having second thoughts, aren't you? And she's like, I am. And she's like, it's okay. You don't have to sell to me, girl. Like, just live there. It's fine. But then, like, the tornado sirens start going off. She's like, oh my God. Yeah, or tornadoes hitting. So instead of taking shelter, she immediately hops in her truck and is like, I gotta get back to Crow's Rest. And so she drives there, but a tree blocks part of her path, so then she has to run the rest of the way. So that's like a really smart thing to do when a tornado is hitting. But Jack is pacing the driveway, so as soon as he sees her, excuse me, Hollowstock, he grabs her and runs inside, and they go to the basement. While in the basement, they actually find a secret room that's filled with all of Winifred's old stuff. And while they're doing this, the tornado is raging on and it actually hits them directly. It hits Crow's Rest like directly. And because Crow's Rest is now basically in ruins, it messes up what was left of Winifred's magic, and Hollowstock turns back into the Scarecrow that he always was. Delilah is, of course, freaking out because now she's realizing, oh my God, I need Hollowstock here. He cannot be a Scarecrow forever. What do I do? Well, after the storm passes, she tries to figure stuff out. So half of the house and all of the crops are gone. Just gone. Completely gone. Tornado took them out. And she also knows that she's gonna have to face the Crow King alone. So she's got a lot to do. She needs to clean that up, needs to figure out what to do with the Crow King, and in the meantime, she tries going through Winifred's stuff and seeing if there are any rituals or anything that can bring Hollowstock back to life, to which she's unable to figure out or find, or she can't get him back to life, is basically the point. So she's like, maybe I could amend the pact with the Crow King and he can bring Hollowstock back to life. So a lot of time actually passes, and in that time, she fixes the house, Her brother visits again because they're all good now, and he reveals that her mom actually knew that her aunt was trying to get in contact with her before she passed, but her mom hid it from her and never told her. So she's like, oh, okay, what the heck? And also, Jack is still a scarecrow for all of this. But enough time passes that it's now Halloween, and that is the day that she is supposed to give the Crow King all the crops. And so she meets with him and is like, hey, I'm sure you're aware a tornado hit and kind of ruined the plans. But she offers what she can, and she also offers to amend the deal. And the Crow King is like, sure, let's amend the deal. Eventually they find terms that they can agree to, that she has to go through a corn maze to find Hollowstock in time. And if she doesn't, then she becomes his forever. His is in the Crow King. But if she does find him, then he'll be restored back to life. He will alter Hollowstock so they are able to have children, and they must now celebrate the crows and feed them like year round. And she's like, okay, sounds good, but like, why do you care if we have kids? And he's basically like, well, if you have kids, then there's gonna be more people to inherit the farms, and everything can keep happening how it's supposed to, and my crows will be taken care of for a long time. So that's why. She's like, okay. So she takes the deal, and she runs in this corn maze, and she's on the hunt to find Hollowstock. And so, spoiler alert, she does find Hollowstock, and Hollowstock comes back to life, and they're reunited. So now that they're reunited, she fills him in on everything, and also like the whole future children talk, because obviously they didn't have that conversation and didn't think they could have kids together. But they're both very excited because they do both want kids. The shade is Dolce Vita. And then Delilah officially signs the new pact, like actually signs her name, so it's a done deal. And then it's time for the epilogue, which happens 3 years later. So it's revealed that they now host like an annual event at Crow's Rest Sanctuary. They renamed it, where it like honors and celebrates the crows as part of the deal. And during this time, her family is visiting. The characters from the first book are visiting again. And it's revealed that her and Jack have gotten married, and she is currently 5 months pregnant with a baby girl. So a happy ending! Happy ending all around. And that timing worked out great because now like this makeup look is done, which I wanted it to be a little more natural and quick, and well, it wasn't that quick, but my skin's looking good. I gotta not go so heavy-handed on the eyeshadow. I don't know what is in my brain that makes me do that. I do like this lip color though, like it's just a little subtle, but like it pops my lips. It's good. It's good. We're good. But anyway, so that is the Scarecrow's Queen. So I have some thoughts. I feel like I told you a lot of thoughts throughout all of this, but I have more thoughts. So I love the idea of a Scarecrow love interest. So much so, I need people to start writing more of them. Like, I couldn't really find another book where there was a Scarecrow love interest, so I'm like, shit, do I gotta do it? Like, what's happening here? Come on, guys, come on. I want more Scarecrow love interests because that is new and fun and I like it. But there were some weird communication things throughout the story. Because for one, it makes sense why Jack isn't able to communicate like fully or understand social cues because he was a scarecrow. And so I kind of understand that when he came to life, he had the basic knowledge of communication because of A, the magic, and B, like being around for basically 200 years, he probably overheard plenty of conversations. However, there were points where I was like, that's kind of interesting that Jack understands that when he didn't understand this. Like, for example, when he showed up after being missing for a while, Delilah's like, oh my god, you need to tell me that. Like, don't do that to me or I'll fire you. And he's like, oh, you'd fire me? And that whole interaction almost like, it took me out of the book because I was like, oh, he understands what fire me means, because I would have thought as a scarecrow, he would have thought Delilah was threatening to light him on fire, but he knew it meant like being let go from a job. And there were just kind of key points like that where I was like, so he understands this but doesn't understand that. And also just a lack of communication in general. They would be avoiding each other for a while, and also how long it took for Delilah to understand the pact was a little bit infuriating because the way Jack was explaining it was so obtuse and just very difficult to understand for somebody who didn't know that the farm was magic. Like, he really just did not try to fill her in, or I guess that's not true. He tried to fill her in, but he did it in a terrible way. So, like, I can't even be mad at her that she's not believing this because you're not doing a very good job at explaining here. There there was also a little bit of lack of getting to know any other characters, I guess, like besides Miranda, but like the characters that were from the first book, like the first couple, when she meets them in a way that made me be like, oh, they're gonna be important later on, but they literally don't show up again until the epilogue. Why did they bother to introduce these people if they really weren't important? So I would say those are my gripes. However, the pros definitely outweigh the cons because, again, love the Scarecrow love interest and just really like monster romance in general, that it was just a nice read, nice easy read. I think I wound up starting it at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then I just sat there and read probably a good 75% of it. I didn't go to bed until like 1 in the morning, and then when I woke up in the morning, I finished it. So I almost did it in one sitting, and I would have if I didn't have to work the next day, because I kind of had to force myself to stop to be like, girl, you gotta go to bed. You have work tomorrow. So, but it kept me entertained. Love the concept of it, but there were just a few things that really could have put it that extra step. But if you've read it, what were your thoughts? Did you like it? Did you not? What do we think about the Scarecrow love interest? And also, have you read the first book? Because I haven't, but now I want to, because now like I do want to know about that couple and what happened in that book and that plot. Like I want to know. So I will eventually get to that book, and then maybe we'll have another video like this to talk about it. And maybe by then I'll have learned to chill out with the eyeshadow. That I really can't guarantee though. Do not hold me to that, okay? But anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Stranger fucking danger.